Over the Christmas break, I really spent a bit of time thinking about governance, modern governance. What does that mean? How do we really turn our boards into the powerhouse of information and critical thinking and decision making that we need them to be to navigate the world we're operating in, which is complex, challenging. Business is still being disrupted, sectors are being turned on their heads. How do we get this right? And I think there are three key elements that I've landed on. First and foremost, you've got to really think about getting the right talent into the boardroom. Challenge your thinking. We need generalists and specialists combined. We need to get bang for our buck. Every appointment has to bring someone to the table that's bringing true value to the boardroom setting. So I think there's a huge opportunity to really rethink how you're going about finding the right talent, the succession planning that you're doing, the engagement you're having with various board search firms. And I would challenge you to start to think differently about how you're attracting a pipeline of talent to the boardroom and really bringing in the right relationships at the right time so that you're not just doing it the old way. I see too many clients literally put an ad up on Seek, hope for the best, that we're going to get a candidate that's going to tick the boxes. And regardless of whether your roles are paid or unpaid, you always want to be bringing the very best talent to the organisation. And so you've got to remember we're in a war for talent at all times, even in the board director market. It's a big talent pool, but there's a lot of noise in that talent pool and there's a lot of B graders. So how do we get the A grade? How do we get the top talent to our boardroom table? Whichever sector we're operating in, whether we're in government, private enterprise, listed environments, not-for-profits. It makes no difference. You want the best in your boardroom to help navigate the challenges ahead. So you've got to really rethink your recruitment process first and foremost, and you've got to think along the lines of succession planning and talent pipeline development. Building relationships long before you need them. You never want to be on the back foot. You never want to be scrambling to find a new board member, and you certainly don't want to be putting an ad up on Seek and hoping for the best. So you really want to, have that front and center, and it's, I think, incumbent. It's a responsibility of the chair and the board and the nomination committees or the REM committees to really be focused on talent planning for board of directors. We also, I'll just mention, we have had a number of clients in recent times where the entire board has resigned. Either it was unpaid and everyone got busy and one by one everyone dropped off. These are terrible scenarios to suddenly be on the back foot really trying to recalibrate an entire board of directors. And you're going to see that increasingly in the market. So you really want to put some emphasis on the recruitment piece. Second piece, I think, is really rethinking how you're running your board meetings so that you're getting the absolute most out of these board meetings. I'm seeing increasingly when I see the briefs, the meetings are off the charts. There's so many meetings now. It's not uncommon for organisations to, at a baseline, have 20 meetings a year, plus, depending on how many committees you're serving on. Now, if you're going to have that many meetings, it's critical that these meetings are well run and you're really using best practice, but you're also disrupting the way you're running your meetings so you're getting an absolute powerhouse of results from it. So the meetings are obviously, the culmination of all the other activity that's going on, on the day-to-days of running the organisation. But it is really crucial that we really constantly take a best practice approach and a continuous improvement approach to our board of directors and the way we are governing. And then finally, I think we've really got to, take everything up another notch, and we've got to really think about the right relationships and the stakeholder management that's going on around the organisation and how we're interacting in particular with our executive leadership team. I think team is my key word here. The board and the executive leadership team, there's got to be this really incredible teamwork that's happening between the two. We have to be really clear about when the board is, why the board should not be getting involved in day-to-day operations, and having the clear demarcation between the two, but very good communication and teamwork between both parties. So when there are challenges in the business, that information is being fed up into the board of directors, and when the board of directors want to make a change or a decision around business strategy or managing risks or how they're governing, that can flow to the executive leadership team, and we can be confident that it flows out through to the organisation. So getting this relationship right between board and executive leadership team is critical, and in fact it probably should have been my first point. It is the most important thing to get right, and I'm seeing across the board a lot of organizations getting it wrong. And I'll just talk quickly about the ABC example, because we've got this scenario at the moment where ABC are in front of the courts over an unfair dismissal claim. You'd be hard pressed not to have seen it in the press over the last few weeks. And I'm not going to talk too much about the specifics and the personalities. It'll all unfold with the judgment. We'll see what happens. But you can see there was an issue with governance in that organisation, because the chair bypassed the managing director to deal with the content director in the business and start to give direct instructions to that content director. So, you had a situation where maybe the chair didn't trust maybe the managing director to execute on directives coming from board level, bypassing the managing director going to the line in the business, and then the flow of communication going every which way, a recipe for disaster. So, it's a simple example, but it's an important example to recognise, but it happens a lot where there's not this correct arrangement going on between the board, the senior executive leadership team, and out in the line of the business. And if we can't get this right, you're going to have problems. It's going to trip you up. You're going to end up in courts. You're going to end up in disputes. You're going to have lack of communication. Mistakes will be made. And so, when we think about governance, we've got to think about getting the right people into the boardrooms. We've got to make sure we've got the very best A team coming to the table. We've got to make sure we've got the right governance practices in place. And then we've got to really make sure that we practice what we preach, we get the governance right in terms of how we're interacting with the senior leadership team. It's an interesting time for governance, but I think it's a time to really rethink the way we've done things in the past, and we've got to constantly evolve. We've got to have a real best practice mindset. We have to continuously improve the way we're operating so we get the very best out of the board and drive successfully, the business strategy and manage the risks in the business.